Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam. Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Today is Wednesday, January 11th, 2023, and we are 48 hours away. 48 hours from now, I will be down at the Boston Common with the choir going through sound check. Some of you, I'm sure, have heard, but a couple of you may not have heard about the Embrace Memorial that is being unveiled by Embrace Boston and our artist designer, Hank Willis Thomas, who's with us this morning. We're going to chat with them in just a couple of seconds, but I thought it was important to ask them to come and really talk about, Amari's going to give just a brief history about the vision until Friday, and Hank is going to talk about his experience. Both of them are going to speak to their experiences as Black men, one from a national perspective and one from a local perspective, in reference to the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King and also Coretta Scott King. I also wanted to mention that I think it is so awesome that they are intentional about naming Dr. King's spouse. And you'll hear about, you may be wondering why it's being called the Embrace and why you see, I've been, sneaking pictures from when we went to Walla Walla, Washington. But it is just an amazing experience to see it from out there. I've seen some pictures of it coming or being erected on the common there. And so I'm going to bring in my guest real quick and ask them to, all right. And I just found out that the actual architect is going to be joining us in just a few minutes. So I need y'all to do me a favor. Hit that share button and get some more folks to come into the Java Cafe. I know people go and watch after at their convenience, but there's nothing like this live dialogue with both of them. And so without further ado, I would like to bring in first my good friend and brother, Amari Parrish Jeffries, who I've known. I was texting with him yesterday for quite a few years now. And then also our artist and designer, Hank, who I got to meet earlier this year. A couple of events. We had the Embrace Festival that happened this summer. And so I want to welcome both of them to the Java Cafe. Again, hit that share button and get folks to come hear about this wonderful thing that is taking place on Friday. So Amari, please introduce yourself, and then Hank as well. And then we're going to go into some dialogue about the importance of the Embrace. It's a beautiful symbol of a lot, but both of you can speak to what that symbol does when you see it and just know the history behind it. So Amari, good morning. Welcome, sir. Welcome back, actually.
Hey, good morning and welcome back. I'm excited to always be here as usual. I don't have my Java with Jimmy cup, so I'm gonna be sipping on a plastic cup with some Starbucks, and here representing the 02136. So the best neighborhood, and I know you're giving me that look.
I'm 02124 is, and we're going to let Hank put his in as well. But, 02124 got a little bit of play.
Excited to be here with you and my friend Hank. So we got a lot to talk about.
Absolutely. Hank, good morning, sir. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Hank. Wow, I didn't even put my whole name in there. My name is Hank Willis Thomas. And I am an artist. Yeah. I'm an artist. I'm a person who's really excited to be here this morning and to be a part of the legacy and the inspiration of Embrace Boston.
Absolutely. And we're going to hear more from you in just a few moments. So Amari, you've been a vocal that you're not, quote unquote, a native from Boston, but you've been here a long time, and you are invested and have held positions in organizations that help the community. And so I wanted to ask you to give us a little bit of the vision of Embrace Boston up until Friday, and how it impacts you as a Black man here in Boston. And then we're going to hear from Hank as well.
Yeah, Jimmy, Boston is a historic city, and you and I have talked about this a lot. Arguably the most historic city in our country, and we've walked around our streets. We've been in all the neighborhoods, and there is very seldomly the type of monuments and memorials that reflect people that look like us. And monuments and memorials are cookies, right? They're like cookies on a computer. People see these things, right? It reflects with them, and then it becomes a part of their psyche. And when you don't see yourself represented in spaces, it reflects in other ways. And those other ways in Boston have been restaurants, Black-owned restaurants. We don't see spaces where folks that look like us can go across town. The number is picking up, but arguably there's only 10 Black restaurants that have an entertainment license, that have a liquor license. So spaces where Black folks could be to practice joy and relaxation and self-care don't exist. So a monument like this is a spatial justice issue for us in this community. When Black folks don't have spaces that belong to them, when people of color don't have spaces that represent their culture, there's a lack of belonging that occurs. And I think for a long time, that's been in the air. We've always represented our city. We've always said these are our places, but there's an air around, hey, you might not belong here, even in cities where folks grew up.
So you didn't give me a chance, because I take a sip when it's a little not shade, but just really stating facts that, and we've talked about this, the first Java Cafe, and I knew you were swamped, but we wanted you to come to speak to that sort of spatial justice piece and about Black spaces in specifically in Boston. And so, Hank, if you could speak a little bit to, from a national perspective, as a Black man, I am familiar with some of your story. I heard you talk at the event this summer. I was kind of checking out your bio and trolling you on the internet yesterday. And so I'm aware of a couple of experiences that contribute to how you design as an artist. But can you tell the audience that may not know you a little bit about yourself and your life experience, and how that specifically contributed to this piece and the culmination of that photo of the actual Embrace?
Of course. Thank you. Well, I had this incredible gift of being born of my two parents, Deborah Willis and Hank Thomas. And they were of that first generation of African Americans who, I like to point out, they got a true crack at freedom, meaning that they were not just the subjects of society at large, that they were actually able to go to certain schools and actually put themselves in situations where they were elevating and challenging the status quo. So my father was a Black Panther, and my mother later is an artist and art historian, but really created a field, in a sense, for herself and for others called, within art history, called the history of Black photography, where up until really the 70s and 80s, when my mother and a few other people started to really look at the legacy of African American photographers, the story of representation of lived Black people and photographed was very limited. And the fact that the way that mainstream society depicted Black people was very different than the way that people of African descent did, dating back to 1840. And just the fact that Black people were making pictures in 1840 tells a very different story about what the Black experience might have been like for some in the antebellum period. And so I grew up at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, where my mother worked for a long time. And then she also worked at the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which is now, well, that project, it was called the African American Museum Project, but now it's a Smithsonian Museum in DC. And so my formative years were spent kind of with images and with stories about the Black experience in the United States that is contrary to what most people. I was a counter education was my primary education, I'll say.
I love the way you frame that, and that's a good segue. And Amari, if you be patient with us a little bit, and so that's the piece that I really noticed when I was looking into your bio and some of your work. That and let's just name that you come from a legacy of what I would call artist activists, artist historians, and thank you for that update about photography. And I'm sure Amari, if we haven't hooked him and Thaddeus up yet, we need to get him and Thaddeus connected on that Black photography piece. But Hank, that experience of with what you saw with your parents and that understanding that framed you, you then had the experience of life here in this country. And so how did that, with the picture of Dr. King and Coretta Scott King, how did that influence the design and what made you focus on the actual embrace?
Well, Dr. King and Mrs. King have a story that has been kind of told in so many ways that it's almost become unreal, like almost cartoonic in a way that we don't really think about them as real people. And even I hadn't read their autobiographies until I was tasked with doing this project and realizing that they were not, they, even by their own terms, not perfect human beings. They were people who had feelings, they had doubt, they had fear, they had personal struggles, but they also had dreams, they had belief, they had support, and they had community, and they had each other. And I really wanted to highlight the intimacy side of their relationship, because the courage is something we talk about to the point that none of us feel like we could ever have that courage, because they had that courage for us. But really, each of us has the potential in ourselves to be as impactful and as inspirational as Dr. and Mrs. King. It's just a matter of if we're willing to challenge ourselves and those in our lives to put ourselves out there, because they knew from the very beginning that the connection, that them coming together was going to change things. And they also knew there was going to be a cost. And so I guess for me, when I thought about making the piece, I didn't want it to be like something like, oh, look at them over there, up there, over there. I wanted to highlight the part of them that all of us can actually feel and know is also connected to us, which is our capacity to share unconditional love, and to embrace another person, and actually have the ripple effects of our love be something that can nourish future generations.
Amari, I see you shaking your head, so please jump in there and respond to Hank again, because you have had the task of ensuring this from vision to what we're going to see on Friday. And we actually have, and this young man, I actually, now that I see his face, we have talked and met at the last fellowship with you, Amari. So I am excited to welcome John Evans into the Java Cafe, who is the actual architect for this project. And so, John, Amari, thank you for your patience. I'm just going to deviate a little bit. Ask John to introduce himself.
You gotta get John in here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Appreciate y'all.
I am excited, sir. Good to see you again, sir. So, John, please say hello to the audience. And I asked both Hank and Amari if they would talk about their experience as a Black man as it relates to this project. And so if you could introduce yourself, we're going to go to Amari based on what Hank just said, and then we'll come back to you to talk about your experience and how it relates to the project. But please at least say good morning and introduce yourself to the audience.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy to be here. Pleasure to be here. My name is John Evans. I'm a principal with Mass Design Group. We're an architecture firm focused on social justice with our projects, and no better project to begin to share those values than with the Embrace here. So it's been a pleasure and an honor to work with these gentlemen here to make this happen. So
we'll be right.
I'll kick it to Hank.
Absolutely. Amari, I know you're burning to respond to what Hank was talking about with the challenges and what the Brace does and connections. And so on a local level, seeing this through from vision until what we're going to see on Friday. And at some point in a few minutes, we're going to talk about the work of Embrace Boston beyond this wonderful symbol. So your response to what Hank just shared.
Yeah, I always feel honored that, I get to work with these beautiful men on this call and fulfill this this vision that they had when they came together to create this memorial, both the plaza and the artwork, this kind of connection between space, art, mind, spirit, body. And I was tasked to find resources, right? So, I've been trying to convince folks, been trying to guilt folks.
You haven't been trying is failing. You haven't done any trying.
Oh, yeah. There you
go. Okay, I'm gonna take a sip right there.
You've been doing.
we clown each other a lot. One of the things about Jonathan and Hank, they both have their hands on their faces. So you see Jonathan put his hand down. Brother didn't put any lotion on the knuckles. So
okay.
Come on with this brotherhood black joy this morning.
You're coming in hard this morning, dude. You had me running through Boston this morning to get to this place here for this.
But we have fun together, and I think it felt like a brother and sisterhood between the folks who created this. And I got the task to try to pull together the resources and to activate meaning and do some sense making for folks on this art. And so I've had thousands and thousands of conversations to try to get people, to try to invite people to engage. And it's been different stories that I've heard. People have, and I think he said this earlier, so many different interpretations of the King's story and what it meant to them. I mean, thousands. I wish I would have documented the stories of King's legacy on the individuals that said, I want to give my time, I want to give my talent, I want to give my treasure. And so to create something, a plaza, a beautiful work of art that represented thousands and thousands of stories in the city has been an honor and a pleasure and a privilege for me. It's been humbling to get to do that and work with these two gentlemen.
And we're going to go.
I just like to point out because Amari is so humble when he says, I try. I'm like, no, like the trying part is over. You're talking about what you already did, and I feel like it's been really impressive because Jonathan and I were on the project a little bit before you came on, and just seeing the kind of the supercharge that you brought to the embrace and all the ways that you used your power to carry this story forward. You can brush your shoulders off a little bit now.
Come on, you have to, Amari. We have to capture that.
Oh! There we go. Okay.
No, but I just want to name before we turn it over to John. I just want to name, and someone put this in the comments here, is I see the whole concept of embrace through the collaboration of these three Black men. It represents the success of the fight of Dr. and Mrs. King. And so where we have these Black joy moments, we definitely want to capture them. And Hank, I love that you are affirming and bigging up Amari, because sometimes in our society, we don't see as much of that. Media highlights the opposite of that. And so I'm not going to get into that. But John, your story in relation to this project, and Hank is the designer, but you had the task, I presume, of figuring out how to bring it together, get it from Walla, across the country, over into Boston Common. Tell us, sir.
Yeah, no, this was you're absolutely right. This is one of those like products that sometimes you're in the day-to-day, the grind of it, the emails, the work, it's hard to take a step back and actually see the impact and the magnitude of what this product is and what it's doing. And yeah, I mean, our team has worked with Hank's team on a few other projects, and when this one came across, this was just again, one of those opportunities where you want to bring your best self because you know what this is going to do and what this can mean for the conversation in Boston. Like in Boston Common, it's in many ways it's like when you tell the story of Boston, there's certain narratives about Boston. You got you got the Faneuil Halls, the Newberry Streets. Boston Common is in there with the sort of like what it means to be from Boston. And so the idea that we can tell this story and center Dr. and Mrs. King, center Black Boston on the Common, and realize that this is a place where we can have this this dialogue, this acknowledgement, this reflection. And that was an amazing opportunity. And so being able to work with Hank, take the sculpture, this inspiration, and say, okay, now what is it going to be made out of? How big does it want to be? How does it actually work in space and become grounded to, both be with the park, feel timeless, feel purposeful, and be as impactful as we all want it to be. So this was, again, the sort of the work to make it look like it belongs. I think, I don't want to get too into details, but again, it was a labor of love. It was a lot of work, but it's also something that, can step back and sort of see, wow, this is meaningful. My parents, like, this was like every time they call me, they're like, how's the embrace going? How's the embrace going? So this is a project that, it has meaning. They don't care about, they care about, they don't care as much about the other products as they do about this one, just because, it matters. You're telling a story. You feel the obligation to those that came before and those that are come after to kind of get it right and tell the story right.
Hank, in your design, what do you want people to experience in the first moment of walking up? I know for me, it's going to be interesting, no way near as interesting for you all, but just the small part of seeing it laid out in Walla and whatnot. As you mentioned, you all have been involved from the beginning. What do you want people to experience when they walk in there and it's unveiled on Friday?
I've been making art long enough to train myself not to have expectations for how people encounter it, right? Because a lot of times I learn more from the audience response about the work than I do from my own thing. So sometimes people be like, "Oh, did you mean to do that?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I totally,
you got me.
So my ears are open, my heart is open. I can say that from the experience of a few people I know who have seen it. There's been a sense of awe, and I guess you can almost say a holiness. There's a spiritual element to engaging with the piece, and that's something I can't say that I anticipated, that I'm very excited to learn is happening, and I hope that continues.
One of the things that I remember from the summer when you were talking about it, and Amari, I'm going to come to you and ask you the same question, was that you and Amari were talking about the fact that you're going to get a moment by yourself to stand in the middle and look up and just see that. And so I am looking forward for your experience for that, because there's nothing. I've designed flyers, put them online, and then walked in somewhere and seen them in a store. And I'm like, wow, it's different seeing it online. A piece of paper talking about a talk show versus something with such historic, influential, spiritual magnitude. I can't even imagine some of what you're going to go through on Friday. Amari, what do you hope? And Hank, I got to say that what I understand it, but I was going to push you a little bit to get a little from you around expectation. But I love your response there, because that shows your openness, because that'll inform ongoing pieces and things like that. Amari, what do you hope that people experience when it's unveiled on Friday? And if I could ask one thing, is it actually going to, do we got a big, covering, and is it covered and we're going to pull it back, or how, a little bit of detail?
Yeah. I don't know. They keep me out of those details. I tend to, like, once I get in the kitchen, I tend to put extra ingredients and stuff. They tend to keep me out of those conversations. But I think people will be inspired and overwhelmed, right? And you and I talked about this when we went to Walla Walla and I saw it for the first time. And
right.
You said, Imari, you should expect a reaction. And I said, come on, Jimmy, I've seen stuff before. And you were right. And my wife had an opportunity yesterday to come out and see it. And, Hank, I overheard Hank and Miriam talking yesterday. Like in one of the pieces that came out the other day, there was a quote from Malia when we went out to Walla Walla that there were these brown hands making these brown hands. There were these brown families making brown families. You remember she was talking about that when we went out there. And so my wife, who is from Mexico, when we went out there, most of the working team are also Mexican American, and they happen to be, if you remember, I was talking to them, happen to be from the hometown of my wife's grandmother. And so when they came to town, my mother-in-law wanted to host them and cook a traditional meal, 2 traditional meals from their hometown. And so we got to host the workers when they came to town to assemble the embrace. And so this thing that Hank's talking about, that I've heard Jonathan say over and over again about this beloved community, I would have never had the opportunity to go to Walla Walla and meet these people who happen to be from the same place where my wife's family is from, and create a beloved community across lines. And so there's almost every opportunity. Jonathan and I went to Madison, Wisconsin, and we went to visit the Stone, and we went out to eat with the folks who are fabricating the stone. And the next thing I knew, we had invited other people at the restaurant to join us on a boat ride, some strangers. So we would like to meet new friends, and so it's just created these communities. And I think when people see the embrace, I think they'll be inspired to embody the beloved community for Boston. And I think this will be Boston's Statue of Liberty. And when people come here, they'll make no mistake about it. They'll understand the Kings were here, and they'll understand the other leaders of Boston, but they also feel a sense of belonging. And I hope they feel like Boston can be their home.
Yeah, if I could just chime in quickly, I mean, I'm obviously I've been there every week, so I've been kind of in the grind, seeing it day by day. So I'm probably a little too close to it. But I mean, I will say that when I bring somebody new to the site, or Charlie Davies came the other day, or other people in my office, like they are overcome with emotion. I think the power of making something that actually makes you feel, makes you think. I don't take that for granted, and I think we've Hank, you've been able to sort of rise to the moment here and make something that forces a reaction, forces a certain. You can't just blow by this thing, man. So you're opening that door for that conversation, which is, I think, a powerful thing. So it's been exciting to be able to do this and to begin to create that opportunity for feeling.
I know you guys are extremely busy getting ready, and thank you. You've been on CBS and NBC and all that other stuff coming in here. And Amari, I just want to name that while saying that, jokingly, you've been very intentional about allowing community, Black, local, what I call hood media community to be represented and cover this experience. So I want to publicly thank you, because I don't think you've been on since we went to Walla, for that opportunity to travel nationally and cover a story about something that's going on in our city up until this point. So thank you for that. And I said that because I'm going to not hold you guys too much longer. But Hank, I wanted to ask you the detail, the embrace. Why specifically that? Why not more of the bus? Why just the arms and the hands? Why?
Well, I hope you'll indulge me, because I just went, and when speaking to Amari, when he was just speaking, I was reminded of something that we don't talk about a lot, is this concept that the Kings celebrated called the beloved community. And there's a quote that I found by Coretta Scott King that I'd love to read, where she says, "To me, the beloved community is a realistic vision of an achievable society, one in which problems and conflict exist, but are resolved peacefully and without bitterness. In the beloved community, caring and compassion drive political policies and support worldwide elimination of poverty and hunger and all forms of bigotry and violence. The beloved community is a state of heart and mind, a spirit of hope and goodwill that transcends all boundaries and barriers and embraces all creation. At its core, the beloved community is an engine of reconciliation. This way of living seems a long way from the kind of world we have now, but I do believe it is a goal that can be accomplished through courage and determination and through education and training, if enough people are willing to make the necessary commitment." I guess I've noticed a lot of times when you read her words, the term embrace comes up. So, but and a lot of the things that she talks about is embracing others through this beloved community. The beloved community is best represented in the embrace, and so that's a way. That's something that I've heard Amari say a lot of times, but it just clicked that he was also quoting Mrs. King. So we, while we celebrate Dr. King, I think this is also a time where we can recognize more and more her words and her intention with the work.
It is just so amazing. We hear the term legacy when we talk about them so much, but there are unhidden treasures. I mean, that right there, I'm about to Google, and I want the exact quote you read, but that's something that we need to copy and paste and put on our wall, because I think often in this work, and while I know that there were challenges, you know, I didn't want to get into the challenges. I want to celebrate the Black joy of the success, but we do, as Black men, face challenges. And Amari talks about, you know, trying. Hank said he did, but getting from that trying to doing, that piece there, I think, is a good grounding for anybody that's in the helping field. And it inadvertently states, when we talk about this beloved community, it's us. It's us. In embracing everyone else, because we often know that when equity happens and things are designed to make things better for Black folks, everybody does better. So I'm going to get ready to go to closing remarks. John, I'll start with you. Friday, beyond Friday, what would you like to leave with the audience leading up to Friday, and then after Friday, as far as this symbol and the work of Embrace Boston?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's been an honor to work with these guys here. I mean, you know, Mara was mentioning going out to see the stone. I mean, I remember it was 5 a.m. flight. You were there in a 3-piece suit on 5 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was like, this dude is serious. Okay, gonna go see some stone and some mud. He's wearing coming through with it. But no, and even then, you know, that we were dealing with like flight delays, and I'm like, you know, you don't really need to go. And he's like, nah, man, this is important. This is the first step. These stones got to be right. You know, this sort of.
And he said it with it. He said it with a serious Amari face too.
Yeah. This is.
And then he looks at you.
Yep. So it was like, you know, just knowing that, like, okay, this is for real. This guy, like, it means something. You know, it makes you want to you realize the opportunity and the obligation of to this work. And I guess I would say, and just to sort of build off what Hank said, just. It is about Martin and Coretta, but it's also about the call to action, their movement, their message. And so in some ways, the fact that, you know, it's you're seeing the embrace, you're not seeing their heads, right? I think it's about understanding that feeling. And I think, again, like I said before, the hope is it makes you feel too, right? And you kind of feel this call to action to actually realize, okay, you know, I can be them. I can see myself in what they are and what they can do, and I can be a part of carrying on this mission and this legacy forward. So again, you know, it's about looking back and looking beyond as well. So I'm excited for Friday as the next step in this journey.
Absolutely. Hank, closing remarks for now, because at some point I'd like to have you come back and to maybe talk from a perspective of there's so much from the social justice piece, from the activism piece, yes, from the artist piece as well. But I want to tap into all of that informs your artistry, and do it in an evening where we can really, you know, not have to have a daytime 9 o'clock conversation, to really be real about some things. Sir, your closing remarks.
Closing remarks. I think it's the opening remarks, because I think the work that you're doing is perpetual. I like to point out that the road to progress is always under construction, so we always have a new opening, and so it's never the end. It's always a new beginning. And what Jonathan often talks about within the context of the work that Mass Design does is understanding the power of storytelling as in design. And as we make spaces and we create, we invite others to share, to join them. We actually are part of a story that has already begun, but also a new moment in time. And I'm excited for the story that the Embrace is opening in our hearts, our minds, and in the legacy and the story of Boston. So I'm just super excited to be here with you, and thank you for inviting me on the show.
Absolutely. It's an honor to have you here, sir. Amari, you have the wonderful responsibility of putting the gravy on and taking us home. Reverend Brown, you know, Reverend Brown's not here, so we're going to leave it to you to throw the gravy on and take us home in the conclusion.
That was my Reverend Brown. y'all know Reverend Brown. You know he has that amazing baritone.
Reverend Brown want to dance on Friday, but trust me, he's gonna be over in the corner somewhere doing a church dance.
Yeah, he's gonna do church dance on Friday. Hopefully he don't see this.
Oh, he's gonna see it. I'm gonna clip it out and send it to him.
Oh, Lord. You know, I think Friday's a special day. There's a few ways that folks can be a part of Friday. You know, of course, Dr. King's holiday is this weekend, but and throughout this week, there's been
excuse me. Reverend Brown, we love you.
We love you, Reverend Brown.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, I think the event seating is sold out, and so folks might not have an opportunity if they don't already have their tickets to participate in the event seating that happens at 1 o'clock. There is a public viewing at the Parkman Bandstand. DJ Chubby Chub will be out there to liven the crowd. Dunkin' Donuts will have coffee and cocoa, and there will be some giveaways for the public viewing at 1 o'clock as well. And you know, we think if folks can't join in person, there are some watch parties. One at the BPL, you know, there's several that are happening throughout the community, and you can find those on embraceboston.org. Some watch parties. It'll be televised on NBC 10 and on Peacock. So if you're not in the Boston area, you can tune in on Peacock or on your Roku channel to watch it nationally, wherever city that you might live. So New York or Miami or California.
Please don't say Miami. I'm sorry. You just got me triggered there. Go ahead.
Well, we're trying to bring some of that Miami heat. I think it's going to be, you know, after 1 o'clock, a nice 55-degree day. And so those
sun and no rain
out there, no rain. I think that it's going to stop raining around 11 o'clock. And so we're excited about that. And so we hope people can join in any way they can. There's some activities, 2 events on Saturday. There's an event that Hank is speaking out on Friday evening throughout town. And some of those events are on embraceboston.org. And then, of course, Monday, on the holiday itself, there is the longest standing MLK breakfast in the country. I believe that's also sold out, but folks can tune in online, the MLK Memorial Breakfast, and then the Boston Children's Chorus annual Dr. King holiday at Symphony Hall. And so a lot of ways for folks to plug into the King holiday and to the legacy.
Amari, Hank, John, I appreciate both of you. It's not often that I have this many Kings on at one time. And usually it's with an intentionality of, you know, Black men in America and the Black man experience. But to have you all come on in a artistic design, engineering, execution of such a huge vision, and it be I know we just left the holidays, but you know, 3 Kings. This is just really, it's brought me so much joy just to look at this screen and being here with you all today. So I appreciate all of you. And we'll see you on Friday. And Amari, we're going to have good 50. I was joking with somebody. I said, you know, I'm kind of praying for climate change weather on Friday. Just be look at Hank's face. Just a little bit warm.
What kind of climate change weather? You gotta be careful.
Oh, that's true. A warm climate change, because the singers are like, I don't know if we're going to be able to sing in the cold. But anyway, I appreciate all 3 of you, and we will see you guys on Friday. And make sure you bring your tissue, because I know we're all going to be a mess on Friday. Amari, you were going to say something?
Yeah, thank you for having us on, Jimmy. You are an institution in this town, in this city. So as always, appreciate what you do. You're one of our city's lead storytellers and narrative shifters. And so thank you for having us on.
Absolutely. And with that, I'm getting y'all off my screen before we start crying 48 hours early. Thank you all. Have a good day, everybody. I'm going to go pay some bills. Thank you.
All right.
Listen, I hope you guys enjoyed that wonderful time with those wonderful. And I love that we're saying 3 Kings that were a part of this. That was amazing to be sitting here and just watching him. And Amari, I've known for a long time. And to see his success with this is just amazing. And Hank as well. We really didn't tap into Hank in a lot of what he has to share and say. I've got the opportunity to be in some private spaces with him, and he's a deep brother, very deep brother. All right, folks, we're going to get ready to go. Sorry I wasn't able to be in comment. Heidi, leave me alone. Y'all going out there and all that rain, and then on here talking about you'll be wet on Friday, but not cold. Leave me. We going to listen. Friday is going to be, yeah. Heidi, you're going to see me in my old gifting on Friday. So make sure you guys tune in on Friday. Shamika, good to see you in the room this morning again. Good to see you. Wanted to let you guys know tomorrow, please plan on coming back at 9 a.m. in her first community conversation since being inaugurated as the governor of the state of Massachusetts. Our own Honorable Governor Maura Healey will be with us tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for her first community conversation here in the Java Cafe. So please make sure you spread the word and tell folks to come and join us for Thankful Thursdays. We're going to chat with her about a lot of things, her vision. I'm going to check in with her around, violence, economic development, her cabinet, things like that. So please make sure you plan to come in tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And yes, we will see you tomorrow morning at 9. Have a wonderful Wednesday, everybody. And we will talk to you soon. And I think that for some reason, I think I'm forgetting something, but Heidi just texted me. Let me see what she said. Oh, Heidi, I know. That's why that's part of the intentionality of this. So yeah, I know. And I raised it. But we'll offline. All right. I'm sorry about that, y'all. Y'all have